Yo, what's up guys? In this video, I'm going to give you the most accurate tier list in Anime Ultraverse. The reason why I'm saying it's the most accurate tier list is because I have actually personally calculated everyone's DPS, and I made a DPS spreadsheet as well for this, which I will also share this to you guys in the video later on. But of course, I know DPS doesn't mean everything, so that's where the tier list comes along, and where I'll be discussing who's better considering all conditions. So without any further delay, let's get right in. Okay, so this is a spreadsheet I made, and this spreadsheet is considering that the unit have the best range storm and also have triple SSS stats on everything. As you can see here, we have damage no passive, SPA, range, DPS, Weed's passive, this is considered passive, and cost. So our first place is of course the Yukiora, and the last place is Eclipser. He's the worst mythic so far in the game, 16,800 damage only. But anyways, if you want to check this out, I'll put in the description down below, and also put in my Discord server where I'll keep updated on that. So make sure you join my Discord server to keep updated. Okay, so first I ranked them based on their DPS rankings, so you can see here from my spreadsheet. And also, this is going from the biggest damage to the lowest damage, and also, of course, DPS doesn't mean anything. So here we talk about meta and all this other stuff. Starting off with Yukiora, he's definitely the best unit in the game right now. He's have like 86,000 damage per second, and also his AoE type is a small circle AoE, not really small but decent size of circle AoE, and his range is not that big, but his damage definitely make up for it, so he's going to be the best unit in the game for now at least. And the second best unit in the game is going to be Zenitsu or Thunder, whatever you want to call it. His AoE type is a full line AoE, and his range is massive, and his damage is really high, but not outside Yukiora. It's almost like 2 times less, but it's definitely the second best unit in the game. Matter of fact, it also stuns 2.3 seconds per 1.5 seconds, so you can also count him support, but his damage is way too high to be a support, so that's why I put him in meta. And also, forgot to mention, Yukiora also does damage per second. He have a passive that does 3% damage to 5% damage per second, so it's also a really good shield breaker. And now for the third best unit in the game is going to be Destruction God. He's not the highest DPS out of all, but the fact that he's full AoE and his attack range is really big and his SPA is really high makes him the third best unit in the game. Now coming to the fourth and fifth place, you can argue between these two because Soul Reaper does more damage than Kokushibo, but Kokushibo have Cone AoE, and their damage is pretty similar. One is 33,000 DPS, one is 39,000 DPS. That can be countered by the Cone AoE because I personally prefer Cone AoE more. Cone AoE just provides more value, and that's why I put it in here. Their SPAs and their range is pretty much the same. And Dark Moon also have a passive where he does 5% damage to 8% damage every 1 second. And for Ichigo doesn't have any passives, but his damage DPS is really high, and he's a circle AoE, and his range is pretty big as well. His circle AoE is decent size, not that big, but yeah. And before we continue, I have already done every single unit showcase, so go check out my channel if you want to see how they look like in action. Now moving on to the 6th best DPS in the game is going to be the All-Seer. And of course, he's not the highest DPS out of all, even some of the mythic units are better than him. But the fact that his AoE type is full AoE makes him so much better than those 2 mythic units. And also, his range is massive and the SP is decent. It's 3.6 second if you have SSS stats. But he doesn't have any passives, unfortunately. Coming out up next is going to be Shanks. Even though his damage is lower than Shinobu, but his AoE type is Cone AoE, which makes him more valuable. And also, his DPS is pretty much the same as Shinobu anyways. Shinobu is only higher by 1,000. And his SP is decent, it's around 3 seconds. And he has Bleed passive as well. And Bleed units in this game are extremely broken because the fact that they can do 10% to 30% of their damage per second is crazy. And now coming up next will be Muzan or Shinobu. So this can vary because if you prefer full AoE units, then Muzan is definitely better for you. But Shinobu does so much more damage than Muzan. But the fact that she's line AoE, which makes it worse than Muzan. But anyways, she does around 35,000 DPS per second, and Muzan does around 25,000 DPS, which is a huge difference. 10,000 DPS per second difference is a huge diff. That's why I'm putting Shinobu before Muzan. But at the same time, Muzan also does bleed damage, but even considering bleed damage, he's still 25,000 damage per second. So that's why he's going to be the last place in meta. Now moving on to the S tier, it's going to be first place is going to be Sonjinwoo, and then it's going to be Asta. They're pretty much the same unit. The only difference is that they have 3,000 DPS per second, 3,000 DPS difference, and also they both bleed damage, so they're also really good units. Just because they're in S tier doesn't mean they're not good. They're actually really good in the game. If you have them, you can complete anything in the game. The next one is definitely going to be Blaze Pillar or Rengoku, whatever you can call it. He's a fire unit. He does burn damage, and his DPS is decent. He's lower than both of the units, but he's still good. And all these 3 units have the same AoE type, which is a small circle AoE type. Now moving on to Sea God, he's definitely one of the best support in the game right now. Mythic wise, of course, there are better secret supports. But anyways, he does slows 30%, and he also frees enemies, which makes him very broken as a support. And he's also light AoE, so if you place him right, you can do a lot with him. Okay, now moving on to Kuroku, Jonas, and Aizen. The reason why I put Aizen here, even though he's lower than both of these units' DPS, is the fact that when he's max upgraded, he's full AoE, but he's a limited unit from before the re-release, so you can't really get him anymore, so it doesn't really matter anyways. And now for the... But actually matters, if you... Once trading comes, like you trade him, if you want him to go ahead and get it. But for Kuroku and Jonas, they both does damage over time. Kuroku have 5% to 8% damage over time, and Jonas is the burn unit, so same thing as well. Their DPS pretty much the same. They all have AoE, a circle AoE. It's pretty small. So they're not that good. All of their DPS under 25,000. If I were you, I would honestly not bother with these two units. Now moving on to Lone Wolf. I know his DPS is really low, but the fact that his AoE type is half AoE, and he does around 24,000 DPS, it makes him really great. So he's going to be putting S tier. He also has damage over time, 5% to 8% damage per second. It's a Hound effect. Now moving on to Time Wizard and Ant King. If I could, I would honestly rank them the same because Time Wizard has more damage than Ant King, but Ant King have way more range than Time Wizard. Ant King have 17 range and Time Wizard have around 40 range, but Time Wizard also slows down enemy by 45% and Ant King slows down enemy by 30%. So that's a big difference as well. But anyways, since it's pretty balanced, I'll rank them the same. But Ant King is no longer obtainable, so just go with Time Wizard instead. He's really easy to get. But Ant King will be really valuable when training comes out. It's going to be the most valuable unit in the game. Now moving on to more supports, it's going to be the Sun Hashira and also Bushi. So if you're purely looking for support, then these two are definitely better than Sea God because their range is like 20% more than Sea God and also stuns enemies by 35%. All of them stuns slows enemy by 35%, but Sea God does more damage than them. So if you're looking for more damage, then Sea God definitely better. And also Sun Hashira is definitely better than Bushi because Sun Hashira does more damage and they're pretty much the same units. Now we'll have the Healer and Boma, which is the farm. So Healer Hunter is definitely better than Orihime. She just have more range and also more healing. But if you're a Gooner, then go for Orihime. And Orihime is really easy to get as well. Same as Healer Hunter. For Boma, she's the only farm in the game right now. That's why I put her the first support. But healing pretty much only matters in early game. Because in early game, your units die faster. But in late game, you don't even need any healer. So at least in current stage. Now moving on to Aurora. She's also support. She does 3.3 second stuns per 1.5 second. Her damage is decent, but I wouldn't recommend using her for support. If you're purely going for damage, then you can go over before the Sun Hashira and Bushi. But for support, she's ass, so don't use her. Now for Water Sun, it's just really a mid unit. He doesn't really do anything. He does Circle AoE, AoE type, and you have no passives. He's just a normal, decent unit. So I wouldn't recommend even bother to get him. Now moving on to the most useless unit in the game, it's going to be Gojo, unfortunately, and Eclipser. The Eclipse is the least DPS mythic in the game so far. He might be even lower DPS than some legend unit. I'm not sure. I didn't check. But no one gonna use legend units anyways. And for Limited Sorcerer, his DPS is just way too low. And both of them have no passives. And both of them have line AoE. If I were you, don't get them at all. Only get Eclipser for the Halloween buffs. But that's it. You don't waste any resources on them. Okay, so now for the Abyssal Beast. So I feel like it's not fair to put him like this tier list is because he's just really good starter unit. Like he's really good for early stage because it's so cheap to max out, and he's also full AoE. That's why I adjust the tier list a bit and made a new role called early game. So Abyssal Beast is definitely the most meta early game, but in the end game you wouldn't really use him, so you would just use the other DPS unit instead because money is really not that hard to get in games. So yeah, but definitely this is the best early stage unit. Alright guys, this is for the video. If you found the video helpful, please consider subscribing and liking. And also I have already made the beginner progression guide of the fastest as possible. And also I made every single unit showcase guide, so make sure you go check out on my channel. I also put the link in the description down below. Thank you for watching.